The Washington Post is blasting Ed Gillespie, the Republican candidate for Virginia governor, for a campaign the paper's editorial board calls toxic. They write, once known as a pragmatist and a centrist, Mr. Gillespie increasingly has been turning in his political advertising to President Trump's brand of divisive scaremongering politics. It's a poisonous strategy for the nation and for Virginia. That strategy might be impacting voters. New poll from Christopher Newport University finds Democrat Ralph Northam leads Gillespie 50-43 among likely voters, although it's within the poll's margin of error. And now Gillespie's campaign is drawing criticism from some prominent Republicans. Rand Paul's chief strategist, Doug Stafford, tweeting, "So the last three ads by Ed Gillespie are gangs, people getting their voting rights back, and monuments. The dog whistle is a little loud, Ed." Harry Anton, senior political writer and analyst for 538. So the polling, first let's start, the polling has been all over the place in this race in a way that is making a lot of Democrats who I think penciled in this as a win very nervous. What's your read on where the race is right
Well,
now?
I think, you know, you have the best Gillespie poll is he's leading by 8. The worst is that he's losing by, I think, 14. There was that Quinnipiac poll that came out last week. Overall, if you look at the average, Gillespie is trailing Northam. Northam is ahead by about 5 percentage points in the average of October polls. That, to me, is a pretty good gauge of where this race is. Northam's ahead, but there's enough error involved with polling that Gillespie could win.
And part of the reason I think the stakes here are so high is this is the first, it's the first set of federal elections post-Trump. The New Jersey statewide election is sort of a very non-national story. Right. It's about a sort of referendum on Chris Christie's tenure there, which is not going so well.
Not too well.
Not for the Republican. But this feels like Ed Gillespie trying to use the kind of Trump model of this kind of politics to see if that can power him over what should be a kind of disadvantage in a state that Trump didn't carry even last year.
Right. Trump lost that state by 5. Terry McAuliffe, the incumbent Democratic governor, is fairly popular. And we're seeing the polls basically line up with where the presidential vote was last year. And one of the things I keep an eye out on are these white college graduates up in the northern part of Virginia, in the D.C. suburbs. That's going to be a key demographic going into the 2018 midterms. And it's going to be very interesting if Gillespie is able to capture those despite having this message that perhaps might turn them off.
Although we should be clear that Gillespie's playing this sort of double game where the mailers up in that part of the state are like, I'm the son of an immigrant, moderate and pragmatist. And
the direct mail's very different.
And then the other stuff is immigrant gangs are coming to kill you. And Ed Northam wants sex offenders to run wild in the streets, essentially.
Right. I mean, you know, there are almost three different campaigns that are going on right now. You know, in the southwest part of the state, you have Gillespie trying to drive up that Trump vote that used to historically be Democratic, but's been trending Republican. In the southeast part of the state, in the Tidewater region, you have Northam trying to drive up African-American turnout. And kind of the swing vote is this white college graduate vote that I think is just going to be very telling.
And it's going to be very telling, I think, as a weather vane for Republicans, because if you can win those people with the Gillespie message, you are going to see a lot of people go in on that message.
Absolutely. Why not, right? Because you want to ensure that you have a winning message going forward. And you know that, hey, if white college graduates are willing to go along with this, why not do it more in the future? Because you're going to bring along those white non-college graduates as well.
Now, there's also the thing about these kind of very polarizing, very racially loaded politics. I mean, you know, Donald Trump talking about our heritage when he talks about Confederate statues, which I'm willing to bet that most black residents of Virginia don't see it as, quote, our heritage.
Right.
Is that it's also solidifying non-white voters against Gillespie. There's some polling indicate it's increasing enthusiasm in the anti-Gillespie forces as well.
I think one of the key questions of 2018 is you look back at 2016, one of the missing parts of the Democratic coalition were black voters staying home. Will they come out and vote now because of the message that Gillespie is putting forward? If they do, I think Republicans might try to back off of that message going into 2018.
Yeah, that's why it seems to me that this is, and politicians learn that they're not particularly innovative. They tend to imitate things that work.
Sure. And, you know, for Trump, it worked for Trump, right? It didn't work for him in Virginia.
For Virginia, which is what makes it remarkable that Gillespie is running the campaign he is in Virginia.
It's remarkable, but so far it hasn't worked. But if it does work, that's going to be a very scary thing for Democrats heading into 2018.
And for the country. Harry Anton, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.